Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a really powerful story about fair lending, data, and a fight for accountability that's been going on for over a decade. We're going to see how advocates take raw numbers and use them to scrutinize a bank's performance, and we'll be focusing on a real-world case involving Associated Bank.
This right here, this is the quote that kicked this whole thing off for us. It's from Chaplain Will Jordan, a community advocate who's been on this for years, and his claim is pretty blunt. Even after a major agreement was signed, the lending data for minority communities is, in his own words, abysmal.
So how do we get to the bottom of a claim like that? Well, we're going to walk through it step by step. First, we need to understand the history here, that decade-long fight. Then we'll dig into the actual numbers to see what abysmal really looks like. And finally, we'll see how that data gets turned into a powerful tool for change. Okay, so to really get why that one word, abysmal, carries so much weight, we have to rewind the clock. This is not some new issue that just popped up. Nope, it's really just the latest chapter in a very long story.
You know, this has been a marathon, not a sprint. It started over 11 years ago, with a direct conversation with the bank. When that didn't lead anywhere, the data was taken to the federal government, which kicked off an investigation. That all led to a truly landmark agreement in 2015. But here we are today, and advocates are looking at brand new data, and they're sounding the alarm all over again.
Now that 2015 agreement, that was supposed to be the big fix, right? It was specifically designed to solve the very problems that people are still talking about today. So, what happened?
And that brings us to the million-dollar question. Did things actually get any better? To find out, we have to do exactly what the advocates did. We're going to follow the numbers, using the official 2023 mortgage data for Associated Bank.
So let's get into it. We're going to start with the 30,000-foot view, the bank's lending across the whole country, and then we're going to zoom way in, right down to the specific counties in Illinois that were at the very center of that original complaint.
Okay, so on a national level, the 2023 data shows nearly 11,000 home loans in total. Out of all of those, about 74% went to white borrowers, and just over 6%, those went to black borrowers. This just gives us a baseline before we start to narrow our focus.
Now, let's zoom in on the two states Chaplain Jordan pointed to. In Illinois, you can see that out of more than 1,000 loans, only 115 went to black borrowers. And then you look at Missouri, and the numbers are even smaller, just 8.
But digging deeper into Illinois, you see it's not just about the total volume of loans, it's about the outcomes. If you were a black applicant in 2023, you were about 10 percentage points less likely to actually get your loan approved compared to a white applicant, and you are more likely to get denied. The gap is right there in the numbers.
And this is where the data becomes just incredibly stark. When we zoom into Madison County, Illinois, which was one of the key areas from the original complaint, the number of home loans given to black borrowers in all of 2023 was just 1.
And for contrast, in that same county during that same year, 65 home loans were given to white borrowers. That gap between 1 and 65 is the absolute core of what these advocates are concerned about.
And here's the story behind those numbers. In Madison County, there were only 4 applications from black borrowers in the first place. 1 was approved, the other 3 were denied. That's a 75% denial rate. Just wow. That's more than double the rate for white applicants.
Now, let's look at the county right next door, St. Clair, which was another focus of the complaint. And guess what? We see the same pattern. The denial rate for black applicants was almost 59%, compared to about 44% for white applicants. It shows that significant gap in outcomes isn't just in one place.
So, if the number in Madison County was shocking, the number in neighboring Monroe County is, well, you tell me. In 2023, the number of home loans that Associated Bank gave to black borrowers was 0.
And this table reveals something even deeper. It wasn't that applications from black borrowers were being denied. It's that, according to the data, there were no applications from black borrowers at all. While 11 loans were made to white borrowers, there was just no recorded activity from the black community to even consider. And, that raises a whole different set of questions about things like outreach and community engagement.
So what's the point of digging through all these spreadsheets and numbers? This is where all that information becomes fuel for advocacy. It's all about taking these findings and turning them into a real demand for change.
A lot of this advocacy work is built around one key piece of federal law, the Community Reinvestment Act, or CRA. To put it simply, the CRA is a tool. It gives community groups a formal way to challenge banks and hold them accountable for serving every part of the community where they do business.
And there's a pretty clear playbook for how this is done. It all starts with gathering that public data, just like we've been reviewing. Then groups analyze it, looking for those disparities. They use toolkits to identify potential redlining. That's the historic, discriminatory practice of basically drawing a red line on a map around minority neighborhoods and refusing to lend there. And finally, they take that evidence back to the banks and to the regulators to push for real change.
And that leaves us right here with this final question. The data tells a powerful story, for sure, but it's really just the beginning of a conversation. These numbers, they lay out a challenge. The next chapter will be written by how the bank and its regulators decide to respond.